You need to stop right now!
Morning.
You cannot fulfill the approval. Land isn't in your HOA.
The gravel crunched under her heels before I even heard the car door slam. You need to stop digging immediately. I didn't turn around. The auger bit into the soil, lifting a spiral of dark earth into the morning light. The smell of wet clay and cut grass hung in the air, peaceful, right until she stormed into it. I'm talking to you. I shut off the tractor and wiped my hands on my jeans before finally facing her. Large sunglasses, perfect hair, white SUV, still running behind her like it had somewhere more important to be. Mom, you cannot build a fence here without HOA approval. I glanced at the survey stake beside the hole, then back at her. This isn't part of your HOA. She blinked once, then smiled. The kind of smile people use when they think they're explaining gravity to a toddler. Everything in Oak Ridge Falls belongs to the association. I shook my head. Your entrance sign is 400 yards that way. Her jaw tightened. Phone came out instantly. Good. We'll let the sheriff explain property law to you. She dialed. And just like that, my quiet morning turned into a neighborhood event. My name is Caleb Turner. My grandfather bought this land in 1968 when the nearest grocery store was a 30-minute drive and the road didn't even have a name yet. Back then it was farmland. Then came developers. Then came identical houses. Then came the HOA. And finally, came Linda Whitmore, HOA president, self-appointed guardian of visual harmony, and apparently allergic to fences she doesn't control. I had ignored the neighborhood for 3 years. They ignored me. Perfect system, until residents started wandering onto my land to take sunset photos beside my pond. So I decided to build a fence. Simple boundary. Apparently, a declaration of war. 2 patrol cars arrived 10 minutes later. Neighbors appeared even faster. Garage doors opened. Porch curtains moved. Linda crossed her arms as the deputies stepped out. That man is illegally altering community property. I handed the officer my driver's license. And she's trespassing. He looked between us with the expression of a man who just wanted lunch. Sir, do you have documentation this is your parcel? I walked to my truck and pulled out a weathered folder. Not a printed map. Not a phone app. Paper. Old paper. The officer unfolded it carefully. His eyebrows lifted. He called his partner over. Linda stopped smiling. Is there a problem? She asked sharply. The deputy cleared his throat. Ma'am, this fence appears to be entirely on his land. Her expression hardened instantly. That's impossible. I leaned against the tractor tire. Not impossible. Just inconvenient. The officers left after warning her about trespassing. But Linda didn't leave. She stared at the posts already set into the ground. And I knew that look. She wasn't done. Daily fine, $250. I laughed out loud. They fined land they didn't own. I pinned it to my workshop wall, right beside my grandfather's original deed. I had a feeling those 2 papers were going to meet again soon. 3 days later, she escalated. County inspector. Clipboard. Kamera. Linda followed him like a documentary narrator. He's lowering property values. Inspector checked the markers. Measured distances. Compared maps. Then asked me quietly, where did you get these survey coordinates? My grandfather placed them. He checked again. Longer this time. His voice dropped lower. These predate the subdivision. I nodded. He didn't write a citation. Linda's confidence cracked for the first time. But there are regulations. Only within HOA boundaries, he said calmly. She stared at me like I'd cheated. But she still didn't understand. Not yet. Because she thought this was about a fence. It wasn't. It was about what the fence proved. And what sat underneath the neighborhood behind her. That evening, she held an emergency HOA meeting. I know because my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Unknown numbers. Residents asking questions. Apparently, she told them I was threatening legal action against the community. I hadn't said a word. But panic spreads faster than truth. I just kept digging post holes. Some lessons grow best when watered by their own fear. 2 days later, I found survey flags placed across my field. Not mine. Professional markers. Someone hired a private surveyor. Linda had decided to prove me wrong. I watched from the barn doorway as the man worked. Measured. Stopped. Measured again. Then walked toward my porch holding his tablet like it weighed more than it should. Mr. Turner? Yes. He hesitated, then asked the strangest question yet. Did your grandfather ever sell mineral or drainage rights to the developer? I smiled slightly. No. He exhaled slowly and turned toward the subdivision with a look I recognized. The look of a man who just discovered a very expensive mistake. Linda marched across the grass toward him. Well, the surveyor looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, we may need to involve the county planning office. Her face tightened. I asked if he's wrong. He didn't answer, because he didn't need to. Some truths arrive without words. And that was the moment. The situation stopped being about a fence. The county truck arrived at 8:12 a.m. By 8:15, half the neighborhood was outside. You could always tell when authorities showed up. People suddenly discovered urgent gardening. Linda stood at the curb waiting, arms crossed, rehearsing victory. She still believed this would end with me removing the fence. Instead, 3 officials stepped out: planning department, water management, and a legal clerk carrying rolled maps. They didn't come to my house first. They walked straight to the subdivision entrance. That's when her confidence flickered. I poured coffee on the porch and waited, because I already knew what they were looking for. The retention pond, the drainage channel, the underground runoff line leading behind my barn. Things nobody notices until they matter. 40 minutes later, they knocked on my door. Mr. Turner, we need to review your grandfather's records. I handed them the metal box. Inside were 50 years of paperwork, stamped, signed, filed long before the neighborhood existed. The clerk read quietly, then read again, then whispered to the planner. He rubbed his forehead and asked the question that finally reached her ears. Did the developer ever negotiate an easement with your family? No. Linda stepped closer. What does that mean? No one answered immediately, because sometimes silence explains things better than words. The planner finally turned to her. Ma'am, the subdivision drainage system crosses land where usage rights were never transferred. She frowned. I don't understand. It means, he said carefully, the neighborhood depends on infrastructure placed without permanent legal permission. Her color drained. That's ridiculous. The legal clerk rolled open a map across my porch table. Old ink lines over modern print. Perfect overlap. Every stormwater line, every runoff channel, every overflow route. Cross my property. Not accidentally. Completely. The developer assumed they'd handle paperwork later. They never did. Then they went bankrupt, leaving homeowners with houses and no legal access to keep them dry. The realization spread through the watching neighbors like a cold wind. One man whispered, "Does that mean flooding insurance?" "Yes," the planner replied quietly. Another asked, "Can it be shut off?" All eyes turned to me. I sipped coffee. I built a fence. Not a dam, but the truth hung there. The neighborhood existed because my grandfather allowed it, informally, while paperwork was pending. Paperwork that never came. For 15 years, they lived on borrowed permission. And Linda had just called authorities onto the one property that could question it. Within hours, the HOA board requested a private meeting. No yelling this time. No sunglasses. Just documents and very careful voices. They wanted a formal easement, permanent access rights, retroactive approval. I listened, then placed the violation notice on the table. The same one they taped to my gate. Start there, I said. By evening, the fines disappeared. By morning, the HOA attorney arrived with revised agreements. By the weekend, residents were suddenly very friendly. Amazing how fast hostility turns into neighborliness when your basement depends on it. Linda came last. No attitude left. Just exhaustion. I thought you were hurting the community. I shrugged. You never asked. She looked at the completed fence, then at the subdivision behind her, and nodded once. From that day forward, she waved whenever she passed. Never mentioned approval again. Now, every sunset, I sit on my porch watching sprinklers run in yards that once tried to fine me for existing. The fence stands straight along the boundary. Not a wall, just a reminder. Ownership isn't about who shouts loudest. It's about who was there first and who read the paperwork.